Hello everybody and welcome to my studio. My name is Lonna. I am an acrylic artist. Thank you for stopping in today. We're going to be painting a fun little summer themed project today. Was just a very cute photo and I kind of changed it up a little bit, but it's a fun one. Let's take a look at it. Isn't this so cute? I've titled this A Day at the Lake. Just brought back a lot of memories of being a kid and all the fun that I had as a child. I'm telling you, this one was near and dear to my heart, so I really enjoyed painting this one today. We're going to learn how to paint water and some reflections. It's just going to be a lot of fun. I have painted this with DecoArt Acrylic Paints. You can find a full packet for this design. It's a PDF download on my website, lonnalamb.com, which has step-by-step written instructions, step-by-step color photos, a full color photo of this, a line drawing, and everything that I used for this design at lonnalamb.com. If you are new to my YouTube channel, or even if you are recurring, coming back and watching, but you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's absolutely free, you guys, and it helps me out to get out there to more people. So please subscribe. If at any point you are enjoying this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please comment, please share. It all helps me reach more people so I can encourage them and help them along their path of learning to be creative with paint. So with that being said, are you ready to paint? Let's grab our paints and supplies and let's get painting. Okay, I've got my canvas here. I went ahead and put a coat of white paint on. I think I actually put 2 coats on it. So now we're just going to do the underpainting of the background. We're going to add more colors on top of this. But I've got Open Water, Laguna, Paradise Green, and White. And I'm going to try to load all of those colors onto my palette. I'm going to spritz my mat right here with some water, so that if I need to get some water for my roller, I can just go right here onto my mat and grab that. So I'm going to start with this one, Open Water, my favorite blue in the line. I love Open Water. Okay, and we got that one. And we got this one. And then we got White. Okay, so I've got all the colors on there. It's probably kind of hard to see a couple of those, but we're going to see how it looks. We're going to just make a modeled background. I got to stand up for this so I can see what I'm doing. So that just means we're going to do kind of slip, slap, let the roller hit, just let it bounce off the surface and create this fun little, you know, underpainting. This is underpainting. So I don't want you to get caught up in, you know, all the effects of it, because we're putting colors on top of this. And you can do this twice if when you get it dry. You know, a lot of times on canvases you can still see some white on there, you know, if you want to work on getting it dry. And just depends on where you put pressure on your roller. Depends on what color will lay in there. Okay, I'm going to give a little more pressure on the white side, maybe a little more pressure on that back end with that darker color down here at the bottom. Like I said, we're going to be putting more colors on top of this, so I'm just very softly kind of blending these colors. And look at that beautiful underpainting. And like I said, on a canvas you may want to do it a couple of times, because as we put our other colors on top of here, we want to make sure we don't see any of the white canvas underneath it. Let's see if I can hold that up so you can kind of see it a little bit better. It's just a nice modeled background that we're now going to paint on top of. Okay, so let's get this dry. Okay, my background is dry. I actually applied two layers on there because I really wanted it to look more like the startings of water. We're going to get to this point here. Now this is my original one that I did, but when I recorded this one, I accidentally deleted it. So now I'm painting it over, and hopefully I can get it to look like this one. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I've got my background dry. My line drawing is going on here. You can use white or gray graphite. It really doesn't matter at this point which you use. You want to transfer on just the shape of the dress. Now you could put rolled up jeans on these legs if you want. They're hanging off of the dock. We can't see the dock. If that illusion is, you know, it doesn't come to you, you can certainly paint the end of a dock right here and have it, you know, disappearing over here somewhere. Feel free to do that. This was actually taken from a photograph on Pixabay, and it didn't have the dock in the photograph. So, and I loved just how fun it looked as a kid, you know, just hanging your feet off the dock and, you know, going to the lake. All right, so I don't want you to transfer on the details of the dress. If you want to make it jeans, you can. And don't transfer on any details of the shoe, like the star or the holes, you know, kind of the worn patches on the shoes. We don't need anything because we're going to get the base colors in. We only need the shape of the shoe and where the white is going to be. Everything else is going to be, to start out, we're going to paint it in with our base color and then come back and add all those elements in later. So you don't need all of that in here. So we're going to get our line drawing on, and then we're going to start working on the water before we start working on these cute little legs hanging over into the water. One tip I did want to tell you if you're using white graphite is I always like, this is a black like oven type matte, only it's a smooth one. It's not got a rough texture to it. I've had this for eons. So what you want to do is take your white graphite, if you cannot tell what is the front or the back, and just run your finger along it, and if you leave a mark, or a piece of black paper or some kind of colored paper, if you leave a mark when you do that, you know this is the top. Then write top on your graphite paper so you always know which side is the top. Okay, I've got all the lines that I need right now transferred. Okay, we can remove our line drawing off of here because we'll be able to line it back up later to put on details that we need to. I really would like for you to try and paint the flowers without adding, you know, tracing them on there. They're just simple little flowers, but we will need to know where the eyelets are and where the other side of the top part of the shoe is. Those areas in here we will need to know, you know, and where we have our little patches and stuff. So we should be able to add that stuff back on very, very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my line drawing, and you can see what I've transferred because we need to finish up the water before we can start painting this stuff in. Okay? Okay, actually, as I look back on my step-by-steps, I'm going to paint it like my step-by-step show because I want you to be able to follow along with the packet. Having done it 2 years ago, it is not fresh in my mind at all. So we're going to go ahead and do some of the stuff in the water. I went ahead and transferred areas that we'll need to see, but up along the top here, we're going to put like some trees that are reflecting in the, up here in the water. So I just kind of roughed in a sort of line. You can see I may not follow that all together, but you know, we just need some kind of reflection of some trees up in there. So just any kind of line up in there will do. The reason I didn't put that on my packet is because if you, on my line drawing, if you don't want to add that element because it's such a minuscule part of the whole design, it just gives a little reflection in the water. So you don't have to add that. In my step-by-steps, I show painting this in and then base coating all of my elements in down here before I do the water area. So because my step-by-steps are like that, I guess we'll go ahead and continue on in that path with the step-by-steps, and hopefully this will come out looking very similar. Okay, we're going to work a little bit on the water, and then later we'll finish all the details in the water up. So for this upper part where we've got like reflected trees or something up in there, we're going to mix our antique green, Laguna, and black. 2 antique green, 1 Laguna, and a touch of black. And we're going to very loosely paint that up there at the top. So 2 Laguna, 2 antique green, 1 Laguna, and just a touch of black, just to darken that up, okay? This is just going to be a very light, loose kind of painting. And I want a little bit more water because I want it to be a little more transparent. I want it to be very, I don't want it to look really like anything. I just want to, you know, make it look a little bit like something is reflected down, you know, in the water, some trees back up there somewhere. I'm going to rinse my brush out and just take some water and kind of take some of this out a little bit of some hard lines here that I don't want to see. And then this area is just way too big, so let's break that up a little bit. Got a little bit too much of a hard line here. I don't really want to see that, so okay, so I didn't really cover up all of my blue, you know, I just created the look of, you know, something back in here. The excess out of my brush. I need a little bit more color over here. Okay, that looks pretty good. We don't have to get too carried away with that. That's just, you know, it's part of the background stuff. Okay, so now we're going to mix our open water and Snow White, 1 open water, 2 Snow White, and we're going to put some streaks in here. Now, I feel like in my original one I had more. Well, let's just mix this together. 1 open water and 2 whites. I think that's not going to be dark enough. Okay, so we are going to go with that mix of open water and white. It's going to make this really light blue, and we're just going to kind of scumble this into our water, creating some highlights. Just here, there, and everywhere, you know, just a few. We can go on top of this because this is reflected, and we want to make sure we stay in a horizontal way of laying our paint in here. We don't want to get it in there and have it going downhill or something. And I'm just kind of brushing it on and going over it with my finger. Okay, we'll add some darker stuff in when we finish the water. This is just a skimming of some color in there for a little bit of starting of highlight. We'll be putting some of this color in here for our like swirly stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of this in here. We'll probably come back and refine that later. And we're going to have our shadow right in there, so we'll come back and add some of this on here later. And put a little bit down here. Okay, so it's just a little bit. Get a little bit more up here in this reflected area. Okay. Yes, we'll be defining all that. It's very subtle in there, and we will be, doing more as we build the water later. Alright, let's start laying in some base coats here on all of our elements. Okay, I'm going to show you one coat on my base coats, and then I'll go off camera and apply a second coat on here. We are going to base the dress in with buttermilk. So just put a nice coat of buttermilk on here. I don't think it will take 3 to cover the blue, but if you still see blue after you have put your second coat on, then put a wash of paint on for your third layer. Right now it doesn't even look like buttermilk because of that blue underneath. Okay, and then her dress goes, looks like it goes past her leg here. Okay, so that'll take 1, maybe 2 more coats there. Okay, her legs are a mix of warm beige, natural buff, and cactus flower. So 1 warm beige, 2 natural buff, and a touch of cactus flower, because that is a pretty bright pink color. And we just want her skin tone to start out this very pale pink. And this again might take 3 coats to cover this blue. No thick paint, no ridges anywhere. Make sure it is going on smoothly. Okay, do the other leg over here. Okay, so that's our first layer on our legs there. And let's see, on our shoes, the top part of the shoes here, we're going to mix cactus flower and white 1:1. And I'll just do one shoe and then I'll go off camera and do the other one. We're going to do the upper part, this pink mix. Okay, and I'll do that other one off camera. And then the little top part and the sole, we're going to paint light buttermilk. Make sure I got a little moisture out of my brush here. Light buttermilk. So we've got this little top part here. I do like to try and paint these areas in separately so that I can kind of retain where they are. Probably going to a little bit smaller brush here would be better. And then we've got the sole. Okay, so there's my first coat. So I'll do the first coat on that one. And so I'm going to go off camera and get all my second coats on. I'll let you know if it takes more than 3 coats for either one of these 2 areas. I think this down here probably will be good with 2, but I'll be back as soon as I get all my base. Alright, I'm at this point. I did have to put a 3rd coat, but my 3rd coat on all of my elements was a wash. So I added water to the paint to thin it down so it could go onto a nice smooth, you know, go on smoothly. And that filled in any gaps that some of that blue was still showing into our elements here. One step I forgot to do on the background, which I want to quickly do. We're going to put some dark areas back in here. We're going to mix our Laguna, our open water, and a little bit of black. See if this is going to be dark enough. And we're going to do kind of like we did with the white, and we're just going to create some shadowy places in the water. You know, just here and there. We can go underneath our white areas, you know, if you so choose. Touch. Mixed a little bit more there so we can put a little bit of shadowy stuff up here where we want to make sure it looks like water, okay? Lake water. Because this is a day at the lake, so let's have some fun with some lake water. Can add a little bit of the green into that mix if you want to make a little bit more of a greeny blue reflection. So I'll put a little bit of that in here. It does not have to stay just that blue, so that is not in my instructions. But if you're watching this video and you haven't painted yours, feel free to do that, okay? 1 Laguna, 1 open water, and a touch of black. tiny touch more black in there. We're going to come in and do those little waves and sparkles and all that stuff. So this is just giving some depth to our water. Okay, we can go all the way up to the top and kind of brush a little bit of that in. I don't have very much paint left on my brush, so you know, I didn't lay in a whole lot there. We don't want to completely obliterate our light colors in here. Okay, that's looking pretty good right there, I think. All right, well, we'll come back and add more highlights in the end. All right, so let's work on some of our elements here. I think we'll just start with the dress and work our way down. So on the dress, we're going to add some striping on her dress, and I've gone ahead and put all of my lines on, transferred all my detail lines that I needed on here. I didn't put the shoestrings on because we don't need those right away. Okay, so the stripes on the dress are a mix of open water and white. So we'll just take 2 open water and 1 white and mix them together. I'm going to use a liner brush. I've put my lines on here so I know where I'm going. And like I said, you could have her wearing some rolled up jeans. Moisture in my brush there. I've got my 2 areas divided here with kind of a pink line in there. I had a pink chalk pencil, so I put a pink line in there. Here. That line's a little wobbly there. Okay, then on this other part of the dress, we've got a line here. One here. I'll go in and erase any of the, some of this I drew in with a pencil and some I transferred off of the pattern, because I ended up making this part going over her knee more rounded out instead of more flat, so it's got an extra stripe on it compared to what my line drawing had. Now, when you lay your pattern back on, if your elements don't line up quite right, adjust them a little bit. I just went in and drew my stuff in with a pencil, but you know, if it doesn't quite line up, move it so it lines up well, and put your lines on then. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly dry that because we're going to add some flowers on here. And these are just going to be little bitty flowers, okay? Let me erase some of my lines back that I didn't paint over. Okay, make sure you brush those away from your paint. And make sure they're dry before you start erasing. Okay, I'm going to leave that pink line on there because that shows me where I want to shade to separate the dress as it goes over both knees. Okay? Alright, our little flowers. We're just going to add some little dabby flowers in here. Paintbrush, see if this one will work. And our flowers are cactus flower and white. 2 cactus flower, 1 white. Okay, they're just these little pink flowers. We're not giving these flowers a whole lot of detail, okay? We're just gonna dab, 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 dab. Might add a little bit more cactus flower in there, make them a little more pink. Okay, so you just put them wherever you want. Seriously, when I did my original one, I just kind of put them in, didn't think too much about it. I didn't care if they didn't line up, didn't match. It was okay. Just some little 4 or 5 little dabs. I think I did 5 on my original one. Let's see if I can get some 5 little dabs in here. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that didn't quite work out there, but so just go up the lines, and it doesn't matter if they don't line up. You know, the dress is folding. We're not looking for perfection here. Okay, just some little dabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Picking up a good amount on my brush so that I can kind of control my dabs a little bit. Sorry about that. I don't want them to kind of be all in a line. I want them to be more sporadic, random. Okay, let's go over here onto this, and we're going to make these much smaller because they're farther away and they're kind of folded around the knee, so just little, these can be like just dabby dabs, you know, just the illusion of some flowers. Okay, dabby dabs. All right, let's get those dry. We're going to make some little leaves next to our flowers, and you don't have to do all of them. I didn't do all of mine. Just some antique green. Okay, just randomly. And again, let me get some paint on my brush. It's just pick some and put a little, these over here will be small. Because I didn't do every flower, I just did some random ones. Okay, I feel like one in here needs a flower. Or a leaf. It's already got a flower, just needs a leaf. Okay, I'm gonna do one there. Alright, that looks good enough for our leaves. And then a little dot in the center with some, oh, what did I put in the center? I put white in the center. And again, just a little dot, don't overdo anything. little tiny dots over here, teeny tiny dots. And then just get them all with a little dot in the center. Fresh paint always does best when you're doing little dots. Okay, I don't think I missed any. All right. I need to get those dots dry because we're going to shade on the dress. Now, when we shade on the dress, we're going to use sheer washes. So that means your brush is loaded with water, your paint has some water in it. We're going to keep this thin so it doesn't take over the dress, okay? So let me dry these little dots. Okay, those should be dry. Let that cool just a little bit. All right, our shading mix is going to be open water and a little bit of black. We want to just kind of darken that blue a little bit. So take some open water and add a little bit of black to it. If you get too much black on your first go around, just wipe your brush off on your damp paper towel and then go back at it right where you left off. Pick up some blue and then blend it with a little bit of that black that you had right there. Okay, we're going to come back here on this edge and do this sheer wash. Okay, I'll probably walk that out later. We need to come here where it's folded and create a little bit of a shadow right there. And then we'll dry that, and you can repeat any places that you want to. I definitely want this to be out here a little bit more, kind of walked out. So I'm going to dry this so I can do a quick second little float, especially back here on this edge. Make sure it's cool before we start applying our paint. Walk it out just a little bit, and especially down here we want it to be a little bit farther out. Let me grab a mop brush because I want to remove a little bit of that I just put on there. Okay, a little bit more water in my brush, I think. And then a little bit darker down here. That's kind of the shadowy area. Stay out of the water. Mop, mop, mop if you need to. Okay, now we're just going to highlight on the dress. The dress just needs white for our highlight. So we're going to go along this edge and up along this edge and out here a little bit. Okay? So we're going to use just white. Just a soft little highlight. It's not anything super bold. A little bit more on this edge. Alrighty dighty. That's pretty much going to finish off the dress right there. Super cute. Alright, let's work on the legs now. We're going to shade on our legs with warm beige. to start our shading with warm beige, I guess I should say. I'll have to get a new palette out. I've about got this one filled up. Okay, so we're going to go next to the dress. We're going to do both sides of the legs, but while that's drying, let's go down here next to the shoes and do some down here. Okay, I think we can probably go along the back of this leg, and we're going to want to walk this out. So I'm going to get a good amount of paint on my brush and water on the other side. Blend those together, and then we're going to lay our brush flat, soft pressure, and we're laying down water and paint at the same time so we can walk that out as far as we need it to go. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I load it again. I load paint on the corner, okay, then I get water on this edge, and then I blend, 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 and then we'll go on this edge out here, and we're going to walk it out. We're walking that paint into the water because this side's laying down water, this side's laying down paint, so we can just nice transition right there. Okay. We're going to do the same thing on the front of the leg, only we're not going to walk it out. We're going to keep this a little bit more closer to this edge. We do want it to come out a little bit, but not like how far we're bringing the back part of the leg out, because the back part of the leg is mostly in the shadow. And this part of the leg is mostly in the sun. So we're going to have the sun like kissing the center of the leg. You can already see we're developing a nice highlight there, okay? Get a little bit more back here on this edge. Okay. All right, that's looking pretty good. We're going to darken that color by adding some cactus flower to our warm beige. Now, I do not say how much to put in there, so I'm going to do an equal mix here, which is probably going to be too much. So let's do 2 warm beige, 1 cactus flower. That's going to make this color a little more pink, okay? So first, let me make sure that's dry, because I sure don't want to lift up all that hard work that we put on there, okay? We may have to bring just that warm beige out just a little bit more. I think it needs to be a little bit wider. So we're going to put this in here. This is our mix with the cactus flower. And it's going to stay a little bit more close to our edges. Went to the wrong color paint. That's not going to help me. Okay, we'll go back here along this edge and down in next to the shoe. This is 2 warm beige, 1 cactus flower. Okay, I'm going to round right here so we can give some form to the leg. I want to do the same thing here, kind of round it. Okay, where am I? Okay, we're going to go up here. And we're going to put a little bit of this along the front edge of the leg. I think this leg is starting to grow a little bit. I have to get a damp brush and remove some of that right along there. Okay, it's looking good. Alright, before we go on, I'm going to bring my warm beige out just a tiny bit more on this leg. I don't know if my other one needs it or not, but right into here, I feel like it needs just a little bit. And then try to blend it with that other color that I put on there. Okay, that looks a little bit better, more smooth for the legs. Okay, then we're going to do one final darkening of the legs to really make them look like they have been sun-kissed. So we're going to take our warm beige, 2 warm beige to 1 dragon fruit. Now that's a color we haven't used yet. We're going to use it in the shoes down here. And it's a fairly bright pink, so now if you don't have dragon fruit, some kind of really bright pink, this is a pretty bright pink. Alright, so we're going to do, let me get some fresh warm beige out because I feel like that is, I don't need very much, so I'm not going to put a lot out here. So we're going to do 2 warm beige, find a place on my palette I can mix, 2 warm beige and 1 dragon fruit. And we're going to do just the edge of the back of the leg and above the shoe and under the dress. You know, just where we shaded before, but we are not walking this out. We're keeping this. We're going to round it here and just go down this back edge here very softly. And next to the shoe. It doesn't say that I do the front. We just do next to the dress. And along the back, keeping it pretty narrow. Don't let it get out of control. Use a smaller brush if you need to. And along there. So that gives us a little bit more sun kiss on the legs. So now all we need to do is highlight on the legs. And I used a mix, I think, of natural buff and white. I'm going to have to get some fresh natural buff out. I'm sorry, that was an alarm set for something else and I forgot to take it off. And I don't need that alarm anymore, so I'm going to have to get my phone under control here. Okay, where am I at? Natural and white. Now you can do this dry brushy. I've got some kind of bug flying around in here bothering me. You can do this dry brushy if you want, but I'm just going to very loosely place it in here, and then I'm going to bring my mop brush in so that I can soften that and work out that paint a little bit. Okay? Got a little bit of moisture. Okay, time for the mop brush. You want to get the mop brush in there before it dries. You don't want to overload your brush with too much water though, because when you go with the mop brush it's just going to completely lift the paint off of there. Now I've got myself a hard line because I waited too long. So I've got to dampen that and soften that a little bit. I don't like hard spots. I like it to be just soft and subtle and Let me dry that because I feel like this leg over here could have a little bit more, and it could be a little bit whiter on this leg over here. And I should have waited for this to cool, because if you don't wait for it to cool, as soon as you apply your paint to your surface, it's going to set it. Okay, didn't need all that water. Where am I? Not sure which brush I need to be using here. Okay, with the mop brush and just soften that out. That looks really good. I think in comparing it to my original one, it looks like maybe this back here was a little bit more red, but I kind of actually like it on this one. I think they look much more natural. So I'm going to leave them just like they are. They look pretty good legs to me. All right, are you ready to move on to the shoes? I'm ready to move on to the shoes. All right, let's work on the shoes. Now I've got my lines on here since I just drew them with a pencil. They're a little dark, so I'm just going to lightly erase them back so they're not quite so bold. And my circle is not quite a circle, so I'll be adjusting that. So I'll erase quite a bit of that. You just kind of want to know where things are going to go. You don't need a bunch of dark lines on here, so if you need your lines to stay dark, then by all means leave them a dark color. Okay, we're only going to be using 4 colors here. Dragon Fruit is for our shading color. We're going to have light buttermilk, white, and black. So I'm going to grab a smaller angle brush maybe. And we're going to start shading our shoes with some dragon fruit. Now we're going to keep this kind of sheer. Actually, I'm just going to try this 3/8 inch angle that I was using on the dress maybe. I don't remember where I used this. Oh, I used it in the water to put my darker colors in the water. Okay, so we're going to use dragon fruit to shade and make more defined areas in the shoes to start with. Okay, so we're just going to try and keep this a sheer little float here. By blending it with some water, keeping it nice and sheer. And we're going to start back here on the shoe. Keep a mop brush handy if you need it. I'm going to go along this wrinkle here underneath it. And then okay, we'll bring it along the edge of the shoe here. We're going to go inside here. That's the other side of the shoe coming up there. I'm kind of keeping the brush tilted up a little bit because I don't want to lay in that, put my brush flat and remove the other side of my float over there. Okay, let's go inside here with a little bit of this color. We'll definitely be darkening that. That's inside the shoe there. We got a little bit inside this one. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here. Go along this back edge. And then underneath this wrinkle here. And this can come, you know, on past this circle. I didn't draw my line that long, but we can definitely take it that way. bottom edge. Okay, inside here, we'll be darkening this with a little mix of this color and black. Okay, I think that's pretty good for our first little laying in of color right there. I want to take my little detail brush and I'm going to go ahead and go into some buttermilk and create a little scraggly edge around our tears in our shoes. We can come back and repeat these areas. And, you know, maybe some strings are coming off of them. We got a lot to do to these shoes, so we don't have to get super detailed right now. Okay, we'll come up and do this one. We'll add some stringy stuff in there later. A little tear here. Okay. We're going to paint the circle in with that light buttermilk as well. Grab a little bit bigger brush here. Now, if you have a circle stencil that is this size of circle, you can just paint this in with a stencil. Okay, and that will take a couple of coats. And I think on our next coat we're going to equally mix the buttermilk and the Snow White. So we're just going to start with the buttermilk in there. Okay. Let me make sure this is dry because I want to go back to my shading. I want to get all my shading done. We got to bring some of this color into the shoes a little bit. That dragon fruit. And we're going to mix a little black in with it. But first, I'm going to go onto the shoes a little bit with some of this color. Just kind of messily tap it in here and there. We're going to come in and add some of the dragon fruit and black mix in here. Okay, so I'm going to take my dragon fruit and a tiny little bit of black to just dirty that dragon fruit up. A little moisture in my brush. This is just a dark pink. I just did a touch of black in there so that we could get this darker color, this darker pink color. We want it down inside of the tongue. Get a little bit more pink in the mix there. We want to put this inside the shoe. Try to stay off the leg there. Inside this little piece of the shoe that we can see inside there. Okay, we're going to go along our shaded places with this mix as well. And we're going to put some of this in out and about in the shoe itself, on the shoe. Like we did down here. That's going to have to be a little bit darker, but we want to kind of dirty up the shoe. This is that mix of dragon fruit and a little bit of black. Get our shoes nice and kind of dirty and worn. A little bit more black in that mix there. We want it darker in here. Creating our really shadowy or dirty parts of the shoe, I guess. You don't have to completely cover up all your light colors on your shoes. See, we're just making them look, you know, like they've been really well worn, okay? A little bit more in here, a little bit more of a shadow. Okay, they're looking pretty dirty. Alright, I want to paint inside our little tear areas with the dragon fruit and black mix. That really dirty pink color. We're also going to put this color inside these little holes here. Okay, that was a little bit darker, but it's okay. Go over these areas just a little bit more. Okay, let's paint our holes for our laces in. And we're going to do the mix of white and buttermilk. And paint these in first. We're not going to see a lot of these when we're done, so the shoelaces are going to go, you know, over the top, so. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I think I did 9. I think on my original one I only did 7, so 7 or 9 holes. Whatever works best for you. Okay, that was a big old fat one. Okay, let's put a little bit of the white and buttermilk mix on this circle here. Okay, I'm going to do another quick little layer. This one definitely needs to be bigger. Holes here. Okay, so while I have this in my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and add a little detail. Keep it, jaggedy and kind of loose looking. I don't want to get you in too close because I'll probably end up getting you off camera. Okay, and we also need to go around these holes here. You can use a detail liner to do this. I'll have to repeat that because it's not bright enough. Okay. Alright, now we're going to do a little outline on those with some, actually I think I will shade that, and let's see if I got a small little angle brush here I can use. We're going to go around the eyelet holes, just on the outside edge of it. Okay, this is going to be with some of that dragon fruit. I might put a tiny bit of black in it. It's just one of those details that you want to make sure that you add. Every detail that you add is going to help. Trying to get enough paint on my brush. Let's go to this next shoe here. We still got to do highlights, so before we get more details on here. Alright, let's do a little bit of highlighting on here. We're going to do dragon fruit and white mixed together. Mostly white, just a touch of dragon fruit. Mostly white. I don't want it my white to turn bright pink. This is just a subtle little highlight on here. I'm going to go along the top edge of this tongue. Or this side of the shoe, I guess. Along this edge, and I'm just using a 1/4 inch angle brush, staying up on the toe of it as best that I can. And we got to do this tongue over here, or side of the shoe. I keep calling it the tongue. The tongue's down in there. We want to do up here on this edge. Like I said, a lot of this we're not going to see. Okay, we'll go right along this fold, a little bit along that fold. Put a little bit, you know, here and there on the shoes like we did with the dirty stuff. Okay. Go up to this one. This side we can't see a whole lot of this edge, just a little bit right through there. Right like here. And then just kind of scumble some in here and there, wherever. Try not to make it solid, because solid is not going to give you the look that you want, okay? I'm going to pick up a little bit more white on my brush. I still have that mix of white with just a touch of pink. Give a little bit more brightness to a little bit of our highlighted areas, just kind of random here and there. Shoestrings are going to go over a lot of that, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Okay, I want to finish out that circle. So I'm going to draw a star in here. First I'm going to erase the graphite lines if I can that I didn't paint over. Okay, I'm going to put a star in here. That's not a very good star at all. I don't like it. I want to redraw that. My other one doesn't fill it, so maybe I won't have this one filling it because it has a circle. It has a circle around it. Maybe I should paint that circle in first. That might help me. Oh, wrong brush. So I'm going to use my detail liner for this. I just want a circle inside here. Okay, and then we want a star in there. Let's see if I can draw a star inside this little bitty circle here. Well, that looks a little bit better. Let's see if I can paint that in. I could put my line drawing on here. It might have been a little bit easier. I'll get my other two round because that one's got a wild hair on it. Alright, it kind of looks like a star. We'll go with it. Paint it in. Probably take a couple of coats of this dragon fruit to paint in here. It's not this. It's a pretty transparent color. Okay, so we'll let that dry. While that's drying, we're going to work on the soles. Get them finished up. So I'm going to take my black paint and add some details on the shoes. We need this black line. Goes around the top. Goes along the edge of the shoe. This is all on the sole part. Okay. Then we've got one down here. Make sure you've added a little bit of water to your paint, or that you have really fresh paint, because when it's not got a good flow to it, you want to push harder on the brush, and then that's just going to give you a super fat line that you don't want. Okay, I feel like this needs to be a little bit fatter of a line up there. Could be a little more pointed, but we'll go with it. Okay, let's do this line here. Okay, and these little lines back here, actually it says something back here, I think, but we'll just do that. You know, it can be a solid line. There might be solid lines on there. I don't know. I don't remember what the shoes look like, but we'll just, you know, however you want to put that back there is fine. Okay, so now I need my detail brush and some thin black. And then through this section here, let me fix my line. It's a little wonky here. I need a and then we'll have a line that kind of comes up here. Okay, something like that. We're just going to put some X's in here. Okay, so far so easy. Alrighty, I'm going to make a gray color with my black and my white. And we're going to float back here with this gray, maybe just a touch darker. And darken this section. Needs to be just a touch darker. Get a little bit more black in there. You could just make a wash of black. You know, if you're good at making washes, you could just do a wash of black. I'm gonna keep mine that kind of dark gray color. Okay, we need to create a line through here with this gray color. I'm up on the very tippy toe of my 1/4 inch angle brush. Okay. Okay, then we gotta go under this section. I'm using my angle brush because it's still going to give me that look of a float. No, just solid line of. Mixing a little bit more of that dark gray. We're going to go on this thing right here that we just painted. Actually, let's go on the outside first and make sure we can get everything dry there. I'm going to put a little shading here. Okay. Then inside here where we put all the X's, I'm actually just going to take this and kind of wash this through this section. Okay. And let me quickly put a second coat on my star. We'll finish up our shoes with some soles with some highlights. You can make that star look a little weathered and kind of worn. It does look a little bit kind of too fresh for me, but I don't know if I can erase any of that off of the circle. Let's see, kind of make it look faded out there. You can only do this if your paint is not cured, and I did put the heat to it, so that kind of set it a little bit. Erase a little bit on the star. We want it to look a little more. On my original one I didn't do that, but I think it needs to look kind of worn. Worn in there, don't you? Little bit of that. You have to have a little bit of water on your eraser and try and kind of erase that back and scuff it up and make it look not quite so perfect. And this is an option because, like I said, on my original one I did not do that, but I think it looks much better with it being a little bit more worn. Okay, where am I? White. We're going to do some white now. And I'm going to put some white, a little bit of white if I can, in between my lines down here. And up here on this I'm going to put some white on the top lip too. I'm not filling this in, I'm just putting a little bit in there, not making it white. And we can put a little bit down here. Just a little down there, actually down there on the soles. I think they should be shaded with a little black so that they can look more dirty. Okay, the white does need to go around this edge here. We do want to make sure we keep the top of the shoe shaped nicely, okay? Okay. Where am I? Okay, on the top of the shoe, we want to put some white up here. Our buttermilk was our our base coat, because white is too transparent. And I didn't do this on my original one, but I think I will on this one. Make that kind of gray wash. And maybe the bottom of the shoe needs to be a little dirty. So just kind of scumble that along the bottom of the shoe. And maybe a little dirty up here on the tongue as well. Just kind of, pat that on there. I don't want anything to look too perfect. So that is an option right there. And I think those look pretty good. So I think we're ready for the shoestrings. So let's see. Okay, let's draw our lines across like this. Okay, then we're going to go every other one. And I'm going to that one, so I need to go from that one. We should be making X's in the center there, okay? Okay, and then that one's just a line across. Okay, there we go. So there's our shoestrings. And then we'll just, after we get them painted in, we'll just make some loops. However you want to make the loops. I tried to make mine look not perfect. Not quite that big. So I tried to do one that was kind of bent that way, and then this one kind of bent that way, with the string coming off here and one dangling off here. Okay, you can put the line drawing on and make these however you want to make them. Okay, and then this one I did a loop here and a loop here and a string going off this way and a string going off down this way. Okay, now when we draw these in, we're going to be starting in the center of these circles. Now if we end up filling the circle, we'll just come back and try and make our little loopy loop bigger, but I think it's going to be okay. So what we want to use is a round brush that we can turn into a small flat brush. So you're going to want a rigger is what you're going to want, and you don't want one so big that it fills up everything. So it depends on the brand of the brush and all that stuff on what you end up using. Okay, so we're going to take our white paint And when I load my brush, I'm going to turn this round brush into a flat brush. You can only do that with a rigger. Okay? So I'm going to first paint the ones that go across this way. I think that's the way I did it. I don't know. We'll be adding some shading on here, so we'll fix anything that doesn't quite look right. I do want to try and follow my lines as best I can. Through here. I'm probably going to go over these twice. And I actually think I might have did mine with the white and buttermilk so they wouldn't look so white. So I'm going to dip into my buttermilk now and blend that with my white. And when I go across here, we'll have that buttermilk mix. And I'll come back and do okay. So there's our shoestrings. I'm going to go back over that first initial row with the buttermilk and white. Okay, let's do the other shoe. Start with this one. Okay, that's a fat lace right there. Okay. No, that one only gets the only gets it straight across. It doesn't get it angled. Remove that. Okay, now we're angling. It's easier to pull it towards you, so having your piece like this where you can pull the stroke towards you is much easier. I do want to make sure I'm kind of in the center of those holes. Just got white paint where I didn't want white paint. Okay, and then this one kind of goes across, kind of like the bottom and goes straight. Alright, let's do the other direction. I'm just going back over these. I want to make sure the ones going this direction are on top. We're going to try and do a little bit of shading on these shoestrings so that we can push everything back where it needs to be. Okay, let's make our loop-de-loops. Okay. I'm going to make one here. And I'm going to make one here. And then a string coming off of here. And then one that comes down here. Okay, that looks pretty good for our shoestrings. You can make those little hard things on the end if you want to. You know, can make them more frayed, however you want it to be. I think that looks pretty good for our shoestrings. So we got to do a little shading on those shoestrings so we can, you know, make the division, you know, of where they are, so it doesn't just look like one big pile of strings. We got to have some shadow in there. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of wash of black. You can add a little bit of white in there to make it more like a gray color, but we want this to be kind of transparent. Not so transparent that we can't see it. So we're going to start by going inside these little holes here. I'm not going to do that one since that lays over that hole. Get a little. Okay, I'm just tapping the corner of this angle brush, 1/4 inch angle that's loaded with a wash of either just black or black and white kind of gray mix. Keep it, you know, down in there. Okay, let's separate our shoestrings. So this one is underneath. That's underneath that. Okay, we got to create all of our areas that where something lays across it. So we want the ones coming from this side to be on top, so we need to shade next to those. It's just a little bit. Don't get carried away. Okay, then we also need to do out here on this outer edge because that's kind of going over the shoe. So we want it to be a little shadowy. Okay, we can be shadowy underneath our string here. Put a little bit here on the ties. Okay, you can put some of this on the tips if you want the tips to be dark. You know, you can put it a couple places on your shoestrings, if you know, your loops, if you want them to look more dark. Okay, and then we got to make sure right here where it goes underneath the side of the shoe that gets a little bit of this. Okay, because those are going under, coming out on top. So we got a little transition here, a little shading. You got to think about how your shoestrings are tied, so you know where your shadows are. And I can't put one there. Oh, and I think I did that on the wrong side. Yep. All right, let's go back to my white end. I don't want that on that side. It needs to be on the other side, because that one's going under. It's a tricky little thing. Oh, that one is okay. Okay. Let me rethink of that little shading thing there. Okay, so this one comes under and that one goes on top, so we got our shadow there. Okay. I think we're good. We're going to leave that right there. I'm going to go up to this one here. Okay. We're going to do next to our shoe edge here. Because that should be coming up underneath. I'm not really sure that's... Okay, that one goes across. Just as long as it looks like it's laced. Don't put too much effort into this part. Okay, don't forget to go along, I'm not even on camera, along this outside edge of this lace. And we want to do it where it all ties together. I have to brighten that shoestring just a little bit. Okay, a little bit on the tips if you want those tips to kind of look different. And I'm going to have to touch up on my shoestrings here. Kind of got a little carried away. We don't want our shoestrings to look perfectly white because they're dirty. Okay. Okay, I just want to make this loop a little bit more prominent here. And I think I'll just dirty up those shoestrings just a tiny, tiny little bit. I don't want these shoestrings to be too clean. And then this one comes over here. Those are some dirty shoestrings. If it wouldn't take away from my shading on the shoestrings, you know, you could put a little bit of dirty stuff on them. Okay, kind of tone them down just a little bit. We don't want everything to look... The rest of the shoes look really worn, so we want to keep that part looking kind of worn. Let's wide angle out, and we can see those shoes. Those are super cute. All right, we're done with the shoes. So now we just got to finish up the water. So we're going to work on the shading, the reflections down here. So I'm going to need some Laguna out to put with my black and some open water. We're going to create a dark color for our shadow. And I just kind of skimmed over my directions, so I hope I'm painting it the same as I did with my original one. Okie dokie. All right, our shadowy stuff here, our reflections, I guess I should say. So we're gonna mix our lamp black, a little bit of Laguna, a little bit of open water, just to create a dark wash. We're gonna loosely paint it in kind of wiggly. I'll bring out the original one. We want it kind of wiggly. We'll go over it a couple of times. If we cover up too much of our background color, we'll just come in with our open water or our Laguna and put some of that on top to kind of push that reflection like it's down in the water a little bit. So I'm going to take some black and some Laguna. We're going to make a wash of this color, okay? Put a little bit of open water in there. It's kind of a blue-gray color. And we're just kind of following the shape of the shoe, sort of, and the leg. I know the dock is over here. We can't really see the dock, so you know, maybe this is part of her dress that's giving a shadow over here. Okay, and then a little bit of reflective, a little bit of shadow from the other, I'll spit it out here in a minute, from the other shoe. Okay, we want it very loose, very wiggly. That blue-gray color. I'm going to dry this so that I can put, or loosely dry it. I don't want to get it completely dry. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of darker stuff. You know, we don't want it to be all one value in here. It's a little dark there. Didn't quite like that. Okay, so now I'm going to take my my Laguna and my open water and try to blend them a little bit. And try and come in from this side and kind of blur that. See how it pulled some of that out? So I can get a little bit of blurring there. Do this while your paint is wet, it helps. Pick up a little bit of that blue color, that reflection color on one corner of my brush so I can kind of bring that out a little bit. See if I can create a little bit of a blurring out of this one. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of that, those blues back in here just a little bit. It's going to help push it down a little bit farther into the water. Just have a little bit on the corner of my brush. I'm just picking up both paints, kind of blending them. Okay, so this is all like one, it's all the same length coming out of here, so I'm gonna shorten some of that. Okay, that looks pretty good for our reflection there. It's really pretty easy. I don't want you to think too much about it. I'm going to dry this because I like to try and erase that graphite line, so I might have to paint some more over that. You know, it's just loose little wiggling, small amounts of paint. I should be able to erase this. But I'm going to have to put some paint over it because it's going to leave a light color underneath. because I drew it in with my chalk pencil. So let me try and work some color over this. Really, it should have removed when I put paint over it, so I'm not sure why it didn't. Okay, that looks good. Happy with that. Okay, let's do our little lines here. I used a round brush to just kind of create those circle things in there. So I'm going to look at my original to see how I did that. Because I used that mix of the two blues and the black. And it says I used a round brush to put these in, but you could certainly, it might look better if you just did a angle brush. Okay, I'm going to put some out here. I'm sure these are not going to look like my original, so in the photograph in the packet, if you like how they look in there, then try to mimic that or put your line drawing in. I did try to put my line drawing in, but I'm not sure the pattern that I originally drew ended up being the one that I ended up painting, so okay. I'm going to have to erase those lines. We're going to put some highlights on these circles, bangs. Okay, eraser shavings into the trash can. Never, never, never towards your paint. Always away from your paint or into the trash can. It's just best to get into the habit of going directly to your trash can. Alright, let's put some highlights in our circle areas. Look that into my brush a little bit more. little bit of white. We're just working on this circle area first, okay? Maybe she just dropped a rock down in the water. And the ripple effect goes out. Okay, so now we're going to take some white and add highlights in the water. Okay, we need a little highlights. Okay, or a lot of highlight going across. Well, goodness gracious. Going across this so it looks like it's under the water. We can even have some of these, those things coming out on top of it a little bit. Okay, kind of keep that ring of circle going out, not confined right there, not confined right there above the reflection. These can go down into the reflection. Okay, and we just put a little bit going across, kind of like we did earlier. We added some white in here. Now we want to add a little bit more brightness of some white, and then we're going to add some sparkles on the water. So just wherever you put white earlier, you can just brighten up those areas or just add new areas so that it looks like we have some movement in the water a little bit. I need some up here. You know, little bugs jumping in the lake, swimming across the water. I like to put a little bit of water in with my white paint so that it when I'm doing this kind of thing. Okay, we can even have some of this going across in there, not a ton, but a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go back over a few of these and brighten them just a little bit, and then we're going to add some sparkles into the water. Remember to keep your lines going horizontal, as straight as you can. We don't want our water like tilted. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's add some sparkles in here. You can come back in after you're done with your sparkles. If you feel like you need more white in some places, you can certainly add some white in there. I'm going to thin some of this white down with some water so I can get good flow consistency to it. Make sure I don't have any water on my ferrule. So let's put a sparkle up here. Okay, and then you can just loosely you know, make it sparkle like that, and maybe add a few little dot sparkles out here, put a few little dots up here. You know, in the water we want to have these little sparkle moments where the light is really hitting the water. Let's make some more sparkle moments. All these little dots in the water is what's going to give the look that the sun is shining on this lake, creating a beautiful reflection. Tiny little dots. You know, if you want to go in here and add a few more lines while you're doing this, you could add some thinner lines. Let's put a sparkle here. I had one somewhere around in here on my original. It's amazing how these little bright dots on here create these sparkly moments. I'm going to put a little sparkle here. On these areas where we did some stuff coming out, we can put some sparkles in those. Again, I forgot to turn off those alarms that I don't need anymore. So you guys get to hear them all. Alright, I'm going to put some extra sparkle in there. A little more water in my paint here. Get it to come out a little bit thinner. That was kind of a thick sparkle. Kind of big, kind of thick. Tap back with your finger. Sparkle up the water. I think I need a little sparkle down here somewhere. Maybe right here. one here. I'm going to touch that. Good grief. It's going to be one of my worst videos of my phone going off constantly. Good grief. All these little kind of star places I put, I want to make sure I get a little brightness in the center of them. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good. I think I'm about ready to call this one done. I think a few more along this because that's a big white area right there. And then on this little place here. Okay, I think that's looking really good. I'm very happy with how this turned out. Let's get it off of there so we can take a look at it. Move some of our stuff out of the camera shot so we can have just this in here. Right angle out. I'm going to put my original beside it because normally my video is done from my original. And this reflection, much darker, but I think I like it more subtle like this. Looks like my highlight on the dress might have been, I probably did it a second time. I only did it once on here. So I can do that real quick. Brighten that up just a little bit more and walk it over. Same here. I think everything looks pretty good. These shoes are probably a little bit dirtier than these shoes, but I like how they turned out. I think they look absolutely great. Everything looks fabulous. Original and the one I painted for you guys. And I think they look pretty good. Pretty good. Let me get them straight in the camera shot there. My camera must not be straight up above me. Okay. Alright, that's it. That's this project, you guys. 2 years later, I finally got the video done. But I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Please comment, and please share, and please subscribe. I appreciate you all. All of that helps me so much on YouTube here to get my videos out to other people. The more you comment, the more time you watch. Subscribing, all of that stuff helps me so much, and sharing my videos. So I hope you've enjoyed it, you guys, and I cannot wait to see you on the next one. I've got another one that I did 2 years ago that I forgot to do a video on, so I'm going to be working on that one soon and get that one up for you. But please come back and see me on the next one, you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.